I got to start over one last time. So when we edit this shizzle, it looks good. We're live. Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and we have a very amazing, wonderful, the one, the only, Summer Thommen. Yay! Welcome. Summer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh my gosh. I've been waiting for this moment for so long. I'm like, I'm going to start a live stream show and I'm going to have Summer on it and we're just going to shoot the shit.
Like we do for hours on the phone, only on video.
I know. They're like, so what's your show about? I'm like, it's basically what I do with my friends by myself without a camera and without being live on Facebook, except now I'm on live on Facebook. I got a halo light on me. See, that's how my skin looks so baby soft smooth.
Wait, how do I get that effect?
You know what? You just got to get a halo light and put like, I don't know. Mariah was like, your skin looks so soft. I'm like, yeah, she's like, you look so young and handsome. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's my bronze / Mediterranean olive colored skin in halo light combo.
I'm gonna walk around with one on my back.
Yeah. So before we get started though, guys, the format of the show is quite simple. We're bringing together change makers who are living their passions to create greatness in the world around them. You know, we really want to learn from these awesome people so that we ourselves can be better people. And I'm all about learning. What about you, Sum?
Absolutely. It's literally my entire career.
So guys, I don't call her Summer. I call her Sum. And so that's her name on the show, whether you like it or not. So if you want to address her in the chat, say, what does Sum think about whatever it is that you're wondering? So
I love that your kids call me that too. That's also awesome.
Dude, because they learn from the best. They're like, Dad, I learned it from watching you. Look, a couple of things about live streaming. We are live. Start a watch party. Ask questions. My team is on standby, so they're going to be ready, willing, and waiting to answer your burning questions, or to at least ask us to answer your burning questions. So don't be shy. And besides that, I want to tell you a little bit about Sum, aka Summer Thommen. So Summer, I like to call her an empathy magician. She is a master trainer, facilitator, and coach. She's an expert at helping organizations get to the next level when it comes to all things around strengths, core values, probably some other stuff I'm not saying. And she's especially artful in the world of diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't know. I got a bunch of commas here. Diversity, equity, inclusion. I don't think that's true, but let's get into it. And leadership development. That is actually what she's the woman at. And she's also a contributor to the content of this world-class book that's coming out September 2020, September 15, 2020, The Core Value Equation, which makes her extra special in my book, no pun intended. Sum, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So I'm very, sometimes I like to do this thing to start my show called a yoga laugh. And
okay.
I especially like to pick on my friends with it because I realize I haven't done a yoga laugh with you before. So
nice.
Do you know what a yoga laugh is?
I do. Yeah. It's something that I've used to open meetings, like management meetings and organization I've worked for. And I love it.
Can you show the crowd what a yoga laugh is?
Yeah. So you force yourself to laugh, fake laugh, whatever. And then because everyone else is laughing, like your laugh becomes genuine and it's awesome.
Do you want to demonstrate for the crowd, our audience?
Sure.
A yoga laugh, and then we'll do it together. But I usually do it for people, but since you're so confident and debonair when it comes to laughter, and your laugh is arguably better than mine, which mine's like world class, like gold medal winning. Do you want to start, and then we can actually do it together and have the audience do it with us?
Okay.
All right. On the count of 3, I'll go 1, 2, 3, and then you yoga laugh. Okay.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Oh, dude, your laugh is fucking awesome. So all right, so we're gonna do them together on the count of 3, and I encourage you all at home, in your kitchens or bathrooms, on your phone, wherever it is you're watching this amazing show. I encourage you to do a yoga laugh, no matter, laugh like no one's listening. Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. You got a cigarette? No. Oh shoot. All right. So we're going to be talking about some cool stuff today. I want to get into what you've been up to. There's a lot going on in the world of the Summer Thommen. I know. What I love about Summer is like whenever there's some hot, like spicy topic happening in the world, she's just launching like hot topic bombs on her Facebook page, and then waiting to see who bites, and then it becomes this like full blown like debate over like something fucked up. And she's like asking open-ended questions without making, and then she'll throw in like, "That's a red herring."
Yeah, I love my logical fallacies. Absolutely.
Dude, you're really good about calling out logical fallacies. So what's the most popular logical fallacy you've been watching lately?
Oh man. Well, there are like logical fallacies and then there's cognitive bias, and both of them I love. So like, logical fallacies are debate and cognitive bias is from neuroscience. There's so much cognitive bias. Like, I mean, everybody knows about confirmation bias, looking for information that's going to support the things you already believe. Right. And I think that's the most rampant. We just want to believe something is true in a time when there's so much misinformation that we just go with the thing we believe and then we find proof.
Right.
And now it just seems much more out there.
Yeah, like I was saying yesterday on the show, we were talking about COVID. I think it was yesterday, or the day before, that I like to be right about COVID. And when the guy that won the most number of detentions in my high school and barely graduated, when his ideas on COVID support mine, that gets me really fired up so that I don't wear my mask. So like I got my mask. I wear this for fun sometimes. So yeah, like I'm not wearing this shit out in public because the guy who barely graduated high school told me I shouldn't.
Well, I've been very restrained and not come back to you with all the articles about Sweden because we had
I like the Sweden stuff. If you look at their death rate, it's like not much worse than ours, and they're like having freaking beer fests, right, and parties.
No, wrong. Like Sweden is having and I when you first talked about like their strategy of herd immunity and whatnot, I was like, yeah, okay. Like, and now they're like a worst case scenario. They're the only country in Europe that still has rates that are going up. And like I've been wanting so many times to send you this articles, and they're like, no, he already knows. But apparently you didn't, so I get to like do a told you so.
Oh no, I was
except for I never did.
No, but you don't have to tell me so because I'm just comparing them to us.
Fair enough.
It's like the shit show versus the shittier show.
Fair.
Yeah, no. So but seriously though, what have you been up to? What's going on?
A lot of hand washing. Spending a lot of time doing that. Switching between dating apps to talk to men I'm never gonna meet in real life. It's pretty exciting. The life of a single person living alone in COVID is so depressing if you're not like doing real work to make sure you're doing something. I had my first in-person leadership development session, like an executive retreat since COVID started, and like all the masks, gloves separated. I had to figure out how to pass out materials without contaminating them. Like in person? In person. Yeah.
Whoa,
it was
whoa. Was it social distanced?
Yeah. It was a healthcare organization. So they did like all the things, tons of hand sanitizer. I got a tip on hand sanitizer. Your hands have to be wet for at least 20 seconds for it to work.
Wait, wet with sanitizer or wet with like water? Oh no, really?
Wet with sanitizer, yeah.
Oh, so when I just splash it on for 4 seconds and then call it a day, I still have COVID all over my fingers?
Yeah.
Gosh darn it. Like
I know. I didn't know either.
Oh, I shouldn't eat fried chicken right after I put hand sanitizer on then.
I mean, and not unless you're doing it for 20 seconds first before eating up the
this finger looking good. Yeah, no, that's not. Oh, that tastes like alcohol infused chicken.
Alcohol marinated chicken.
Oh yeah, it's like vodka. It's like vodka el pollo. So you did. Wow, I didn't know. That's bold. Was like they're like, we got to do this in person, man. Like weren't they like, why didn't they? I mean, there's this thing. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Zoom. We're on it right now.
Yeah.
Why just do that?
Yeah.
There's tools now you can use, so you don't have to put people's lives at risk to meet in person.
But I think there's a valid point too. We haven't really learned how to truly engage with people and talk about things that are difficult, decisions that need to be made. We haven't learned how to work with power dynamics over Zoom. And I think it was really important to this team that's relatively new to have some in-person time. And I was the one who was the most at risk and most at risk to them because they're all seeing each other a little bit anyway. But I was the most nervous about me. Yeah, it was interesting. Like, and you put your mask on earlier, wearing a mask while facilitating, it takes all of your tool away. Yeah. So if your affect or your tone, like sarcasm, no way, because you can't show it on your face. My dad suggested I should have little emojis that I can put up so people will know what my expression is.
She has the fuck you emoji up.
Poop emoji.
Oh no. She has her devil ears on. She's mad. Well, you want to know, like, so I'm, as you know, I'm kind of an early adopter, and I'm always a little ahead of the curve. So
totally.
So I've been on
Sweden.
Except, yeah, I was ahead. I was like ahead of the curve, but there was a cliff at the end of that curve. Anyone that has ever worked for me is going to hear this and like their ears are going to start bleeding. But whenever I had really tough conversations that I had to have over Zoom, I would do what I'm doing right now, which is I would cover their face. So I'm looking at like Amazon while I'm talking to you.
Are you scared of me? You can't look at me while I'm in this conversation.
No, like I never like delivering bad news over Zoom, so I would just cover their face and talk. I'm like, the hardest part about delivering bad news isn't the delivering of the bad news, it's looking at the person while you do it. So I realized it's like, wow, I can deliver bad news to anyone on Zoom. You just cover their face and say the bad stuff, and then you can mute them if you want to. You don't even know if they're upset or not. No, I never muted them, but I did deliver bad news many times with their faces covered in Zoom because I can't, it would make me uncomfortable looking at them while I did it. So that's about around power dynamic though. Like, so if you don't like your boss and you want to talk trash to him, just cover his face or her face up and just say what you want to say. Like, you don't even need to know what they're looking like when you're doing it. That is tonal, to your point though. Like what tone is our expressions giving, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what are my hands doing? You can't see my hands. What are my hands doing right now? Am I?
Don't want to know.
Yeah, listen, you don't want to know that I'm just touching my knees. I'm totally being PG here. I swear, nothing inappropriate on live Facebook. But yeah, it's funny, right? Like in the age of COVID, like how do you as a facilitator and a trainer and a leadership developer, what are you doing to help these people work around stuff like that? Or what are your thoughts?
It's an interesting challenge because I'm doing it for the first time. As you know, my content tends to go pretty hard at building trust through fun and games and laughter. And doing that in a setting where you're so physically distanced it's hard. It's really challenging. So I just changed the modalities of a lot of things and let them like have a little more power. And then when it came to times when I knew that someone in the group who had more authority was taking over, I just kind of pointed it out. And I think it's easier when it's someone who's not in the group who can say, I'm hearing a lot of your voice in the room and I'm not hearing so much from these other people. Like, how do you think that affects what kind of ideas come to the table?
Right.
In a really sincere way. You know, it's not calling anybody out. It's just like, if you're literally listening for how often your own voice is being heard in a room, it becomes very clear who's the most confident speaker, who perhaps has the most power. And so it's literally listening and hearing.
Yeah, so I think you remember I told you I did this integral leadership program last year, and I'm still not great at listening, but I'm getting better. And it's not because I don't want to hear what you have to say, but what I learned is we started doing this practice around active listening, and one of the things that was just really interesting to me, which I'm guilty of it probably worse than anybody, which is like the autobiographical response. Oh yeah, I totally know that, Summer. Like when you would facilitate mine, and you'd be like, Darius, that's great what you're saying, but if you start moving in the other direction, right? And so it's interesting, like when you recognize and one of my favorite quotes is, with awareness comes choice, right? Mm-hmm. And so I do think that the power of having a facilitator, and I got lucky, right? Because like my first work with a facilitator more or less was with you, right? I mean, I did a couple other people that facilitated that I don't even remember them, but my first work with a facilitator on a consistent basis was with you, and it was probably about a decade or so ago. And so it's like that's like being born on third base and thinking you hit a home run, right? Like is that the quote, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like the facilitators are amazing. It's like, no, not all of them are.
Yeah, the bar is pretty low for a good facilitator, so it's easy for me to seem like a rock star.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're an amazing facilitator. But the problem is that everyone is a coach now, so it's like, yeah, what do you do? I'm a coach. It's like, are you though? You're like, what do other people say you are? You know what you are? You're what other people brag that you are. No one's bragging about your coaching.
You make such a good point, because I went through a whole coaching program. I have a really hard time saying that I do. I actually say I do coaching. I never say I'm a coach. It's just, it feels like I'm an artist.
Yeah. What do you do? Artist. What kind of an artist? Body artist? Are you stripper?
Yeah,
second.
It feels weird to me.
No, the stripper would be
legitimacy.
You're a dancer. I'm a dancer.
Yeah.
You're an
You're an artist.
You're a dancer. What type of dancer? Body dancer. We got a question for you. You ready for it? First question of the day for Summer. Question: do you think it's going to become more important to have good listening skills while businesses are now virtual?
I think that it's going to be important to have different listening skills. And you can tell, because I kind of look around, I'll listen not looking at the person often, because you can kind of get in the periphery what their gestures are, what their facial expressions are. But when you've only got from here up, and you are only hearing them like phone and video, you need to be able to pick up more of what their facial expressions are, more of what their tone is. So I think it's not only better listening skills, it's a different kind of listening than what you do in person.
Interesting. So it's and probably people will get better at it as time goes on, to your point. I used to notice, like when we had these like calls at when I was CEO of the last company, TMS, and we'd have calls, and I'm super perceptive of people when they're like having side conversations through IM while we're on a call, and I'm like, oh, interesting. And you'd see the two people with like smirks on their face. It's almost like I'm playing. It's like a game of like when you're a kid and you're flipping cards to match things, right? I was totally playing a game of match. I'm like, who's she's smirking? Who's smirking too? And then you see them do one of these. You catch that?
Yeah.
And then I am Ali, my business partner. I'd be like, hey, check those two out. Yeah, we all know you're all guilty of it, by the way. So yeah, but it's something, going back to this active listening that we're talking about before, which is we need to if we're going to live in this COVID, more virtual world, which I think it'll go back to a mixture of, we're not gonna have everyone out of the office because there's lots of negatives to that people haven't even figured out yet. That if you've done it, which yours truly has, will learn that there's lots of cultural negatives to having people 100% virtual. You got to your point, up your game up in these other ways. So what other things do you think they can do to up their game?
One of the things that's been a great tool that I designed years ago for the Henderson Group's communication company is about empathetic paraphrasing. And I do it all the time. There's only one way to prove that you've actually caught what someone says, and being able not just to paraphrase, but to paraphrase giving inflection to the things that are most important to them, and then to check if you're right. People think that this is going to take a lot of extra time, but what really takes a lot of time is when you start going down the path that the person wasn't talking about.
Right.
Clarifying what. So that takes a huge amount of time, and it builds up this resentment that the person feels that what they say isn't important to you. You're already on your track. So empathetic paraphrasing, taking out but, and however, you can say all this great paraphrasing and completely dismiss the person. It's just such a good tool. I use it with customer service representatives on the phone. Because one of the questions is, I can paraphrase, I can empathetically paraphrase, but how do I get the other person to empathetically paraphrase me? And I say, ask them. So I'll be on the phone, they're using all of their jargon. They're not really listening to what I'm saying. And I'll say, can you repeat back to me what you hear me saying so I can make sure that I'm articulating the problem well? And, it doesn't blame them. It takes the onus on me, where I take accountability for the way that I'm communicating. And if I need to shift that so they can understand, that's great. But so often it pinpoints the miscommunication that we're having, because they take so many of these calls, they figure that they know what the problem is.
Right.
And so I shortcut those all the time by just saying, can you repeat back to me what I was saying so I know that I'm communicating the problem accurately?
And when you do that, and by the way, thank you. That's such an awesome idea. We call that the communication waterfall. That I was taught that, going back and saying what I heard you say was, and then you paraphrase what they said. But to your point, saying it with the empatheticness towards it, that's a really interesting perspective, because I think that, and it probably depends on how much empathy you have, right? A lot of people, most people are self-centric, right? And so, and empathy is about putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? So,
yeah, I mean, I've heard this before from all kinds of leaders who say, I'm just not that empathetic. And the tool for empathetic paraphrasing is basically 10 suggestions. You can act empathetic. Just the act of paraphrasing makes you come off as more caring of other people. It doesn't have to be deeply rooted in who you are, but the practice of it, when you start getting more interesting in information and engaging with people, I think that builds empathy. But it is a fake it till you make it kind of thing. And too much empathy, ruinous empathy, is the same way.
right.
You can do too much of it. You can have, bad boundaries. You're not holding people accountable because you're saying well, this is their situation. But anybody who's in business working with other people is there's a balance.
Interesting. And so, yeah, no, that's it, because I'll tell you from my experience, especially when we're going down the road of strengths, right? And you're an expert at Gallup Strength Finder, which my Gallup Strength book just disappeared on me. But Summer, I think you introduced me to strengths, if I'm correct. Which now I'm like the Pied Piper of strengths and core values. But I find that when I do the top 34 strengths with a lot of, especially higher level executives, empathy is usually pretty low on their list, right? At least the way they perceive their empathy. To your point, though, we're human beings, right? Having no empathy doesn't, I could perceive that I have low empathy, when the reality is what my definition of empathy is probably not what really empathy is, right? And so, to your point, I almost think of a way of describing that from what I would heard you say is it's almost like strategic empathy. Like my goal here, and this is what integral leadership is around, meeting people where they're at to get a result, right? And so I can do one of two things. I can have a knower mentality versus a learner mentality. My knower mentality is I'm fucking right, so you need to just listen to me, and I don't give a shit what you have to say. And then the receiver of that's like, oh yeah, fuck you, buddy. And they go, yes, boss. And then they go outside and they're like, I hate that person. And I'm going to do the least amount I have to do to actually get them what they want. And I will never, ever support them more than I have to. Now, if I'm the leader that created that feeling in that person, what am I'm actually losing something when that happens. Actually, there's an actual financial cost of them not being engaged, disengagement.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I like about integral leadership, and I feel like that's where what you're talking about is I'm going to meet people where they're at. So strategically do it. Like I may not actually feel bad for their situation, but by me trying to let them know that I understand it, I'm creating trust, and I'm paying into the till from an engagement standpoint.
Yeah.
And if I'm the leader, I get something for that. I get a more engaged individual. I get someone that knows that they're heard, and more than likely, I'm not going to lose productivity from them at a minimum, and I might actually gain productivity from them, which in the end is $1 in my pocket, right?
Right. And I think there's a slight tweak to that. Sympathy is feeling, it's feeling sympathy for the person, feeling bad for them, agreeing with whatever. Empathy, you said the word, making them know that you understand. And I have a theory that people want to be understood less than they want to be heard. That there's something that undermines their experience, diminishes their experience when you're like, yeah, I understand. Whereas saying, when you haven't been in a situation, like, I haven't been in your situation, but I hear what you're saying. And from the way that you're saying it, it sounds like it's really rough. And it provides a uniqueness there. But I understand, Miles Davis said, if you understood, you'd be me. And and so, if you just try to listen, you don't need to understand. It's the same way with empathy. If you just express something, you get more of the result that you want. Like, I don't understand people's pain, but that doesn't mean that I don't empathize and hear what they're expressing.
Right. Well, it's so funny. We're going in that direction right now. And my feelings are that if the entire world could literally, if you could program every single person's brain, let's forget about the world. I'll take the freaking America to do what you just said, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the issues we're having right now.
It's entirely possible. Yeah, it's especially the interpersonal ones. But if that was brought in a kind of systematic way, not only does it help some of the friction, but it also gets the best ideas in the room. So it doesn't just have to be about, emotions or feelings. It's also about recognizing and hearing the best ideas in the room that aren't necessarily connected to the people with the most authority.
Right, which again, this is around, and so we're I think for some people they feel comfortable with that. I mean, look, on paper, no one's going to disagree with that. But I think that's we talked about this a while ago. That's a pluralistic mindset, right? That everyone gets to have a voice and should have a voice, and like this is, we want to have and for good reason, because the person with the authority doesn't necessarily have the best ideas. In other organizations, more traditional organizations, autocratic organizations, they might be like, yeah, everyone's dumb voice doesn't need to be heard, and we need to waste all that time when I know the answer. Not to say that that's right, but a lot of people might disagree with what you're saying because they're like, I don't need to hear everyone's stupid idea, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been in organizations where I lean more towards what you're saying, and I watch some people enjoy it, and I watch other people get uncomfortable because they get frustrated and impatient, where they're like, how many more of the stupid ideas do I need to hear before we can actually go to the solution?
Yeah.
So what's the workaround? What's the workaround for that?
Well, for me, I love a strong leader that doesn't make me make decisions about things that I actually don't have any authority about. So reducing the number of people in the room and getting input from people who won't be in the meeting lets them know that, hey, I'm interested in what you have to say. It may not affect the decisions that we're making, but there are all kinds of things that the person at the top can make the jobs of the people they employ easier by taking them off their plate. And I think that it depends on the type of employee or the type of organization, but I don't think people realize how nice it is to have a manager that blocks and tackles for you. And if you
Yeah.
have a CEO that does the same thing, you can focus on what you actually care about doing instead of worrying about these things that you ultimately aren't your decision, and you're just getting lip service that your input matters. So I believe in some of that autocratic decision making. It makes my life easier, but balancing it with you can only have an autocratic organization if you have trust from the people you're leading.
Well, you could demand loyalty and trust that too. There's that argument, you know. Like I demand off with your head if you don't listen to me.
Right, and if you're okay with feigned loyalty,
Some people probably
Totally.
are. Some people are like I would argue that probably our president is totally okay with that. As long as, hey, at the end of the day, as long as it's loyalty, who cares? Right?
Yeah, I mean, he's so fickle though. I'm not sure. He's so insecure about how people feel about him from day to day. But I think some of that is about like being terrified of being betrayed all the time. Like I have some sympathy for this guy. He like clearly has some learning disabilities. He like, has some personality stuff that's like pretty tricky, and he really seems to care so much about what other people think about him, which is one of the reasons he can't take criticism, because it undermines what he thinks is what he wants to project out there in the world. I think there are a lot of leaders like that.
Yeah. Most people like the getting to the top is because they have something to prove, I mean, how many freaking people's parents how many good leaders came out of shitty parents?
Right.
you know? Like people that are achievers are like clawing and competitive. It's because they had someone telling them they were a piece of shit their whole life, and they're like, I'm gonna prove that motherfucker wrong, you know? And then they get there, but they haven't done the work to unpack that they're not, that they need to love themselves, and they need to treat themselves well, and they need to treat those around them from a position of love and well, so that they can get the best out of people. But well, shit, we could have 5 shows about this. You said something that was interesting. First of all, we're 30 minutes, and I want to run more. Do you want to run a little more? Me?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's run like 10 or 15 minutes longer. First of all, dude, who's enjoying their day right now more than me and Summer? I don't know. Probably nobody. If you have questions, guys, look, my team's standing by. Ask questions. We had another question pop over. Will the way we approach team building change if we continue to stay virtual and socially distanced?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's some really good technology that's going to come out to help. I have a friend who's going to, Finn, he spoke at our first TEDx, who's developed, I'm not sure if it's still called this, but like the first name was Remotely Fun, which I thought was hilarious. But it's remote team building. It's very playful. It's got some, like you get into teams, but the technology does it all for you. Cool. So the company doesn't have to figure out how to facilitate things online. And I think there'll be more and more things like that make team building easier. And from people who are looking into the psychology of team dynamics and doing a lot of research on it, and then gamifying through video what team building is, instead of having, doing trust falls and some of the goofy stuff that people do.
Let's do trust falls. I love them. No, I've never done a trust fall. Dude, when I weighed almost 400 pounds, I sure as fuck wasn't going to do trust falls. I think that's called trust breaking your back. I'm a big guy, dude. I'm not doing trust falls, never. I might do trust shots, How many bottles of schnapps can we drink? I'd call it 10. So I do want to go, like, we're talking about some really interesting stuff, and I kind of want to go down the road right now of, and I started to get there around this idea of people having, being heard, right? And how I said that would fix our problems. And where I was really going with that is along the lines of this whole diversity inclusion thing, right? And so it's funny. I was talking to a leader who's bringing me another organization to do a keynote on the book, And he's like, so Darius, you tell me about the book. And I'm like, yeah, it's all around core values and building a core value driven organization. And how if you build a core value driven organization, it's a framework for scale and high growth and all these best practices. And my belief is that, people misunderstand core values and they think the word culture. And that's just like this like total fluffy soft word. He's like, yeah, Darius, but what's really hot right now is diversity and inclusion. How does it work with that? And so I didn't have an answer right away, but I'm quick, and I was like, well, and I had a quick answer. My quick answer was, I was like, listen, if your values are not aligned around having truly a diverse environment, then you're not going to fake it, and people are going to suddenly believe you. And that you have to come from a position like, and one of my big things in core values is you have to be brutally authentic, which you can get into in a second here. You have to be brutally authentic. In the book, I could say core values don't need to be nice. And that you get a lot of these organizations that get so caught up in like trying to please everybody that they please nobody. And then they go and they bring in their diversity expert, and they want to, because BLM's the hot topic today, that they got to do their diversity program. And then they black out their social media because, everyone else is doing it. And they paint BLM across the front of their building. But inside the building, they have nobody of color. They have no diversity, and they're really doing nothing for the cause, to actually, they just want to say they're doing it. Right. And so I just said, look, in my opinion, you're better off doing nothing if your values don't speak to that than doing something. So that was at least where I came from. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It was the first time in my whole life I've ever heard the word diversity and inclusion. And I'm like, what does that mean?
Which is shocking to me because we've known each other for so long.
I listen, I know what the word diversity means, and I know what the word inclusion means. So it's not like you got to be fucking Albert Einstein to put the two words together and figure out it means including people with diversity, and then having policies and procedures to back it up. Am I far off?
Not too far off, but inclusion has to do, it focuses on disability.
Okay. Oh, wow. So it's not that people of color and then because that I didn't think of it from the perspective of disability. I thought of it from the perspective of ethnic diversity.
Now, the reason I think that the words equity and inclusion have been added to diversity is, the difference in pay scales between men and women, who gets promoted, and so that equity piece is important, and that the same road doesn't work for everyone. So you've kind of got, and this isn't a rule by any sense, but like diversity is around culture and identity, equity is more around gender, and inclusion is about whatever disability someone comes with. And so you take all of those things together as people who've had lower access to certain types of jobs, and you bring the idea is how to bring all of those people into your workplace and have them be able to integrate without having extra barriers that they experience in the rest of the world.
So I think that I see it like, this is going to be kind of controversial what I'm about to say. I see this in two frames, right? I think that the problem we have that's making all this such a bigger problem right now is that the world's been run by a bunch of white dudes, right? I mean, I'm just right. So everyone's tired of the white dudes running the world, and they're like, fuck that. We need to have women. We need to have people of color. We need to have people of diversity. And so then the pendulum's swinging the other way, and they're like, what are you doing about, making your stuff more diverse, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go back the other way to say, like, I think if that's not being done from a place of honesty, then are you really affecting change? If I'm giving access to people of color, or if I'm creating, what was the thing when we were in college where if you're ethnic, you got into colleges
affirmative action.
Yeah. If I'm just doing affirmative action to diverse it up, but the reality is me and the white dudes are like, man, when's this shit going to be over with so we could go back to the boys club? Then are you really affecting change, right? And my feelings are you're absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree. And for me personally, I won't work for an organization that hasn't already hired a diversity, equity, and inclusion program director, because I want to come into an organization that's already knew that this was work that was important. And I don't want to be in charge of that, which often has happened in the past when there isn't that.
Wait, hold on. Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Wait. So I know that you get brought in for leadership development, but you're telling me what
Mhm.
once you get there, they're like, yeah, she could do leadership development, but let's give her this diversity stuff too. That's what happens to you.
Absolutely. And it's not it's
Is it
not
because
just,
wait, are you an expert at this, or is it because there's something else?
what I think is interesting is I'm palatable to all kinds of people. So, I don't, rub people the wrong way, being, multiracial, having a pretty interesting background. And it's like, let's give it to this person who is going to be more accepted by more people, and it is a good facilitator, and none of the rest of us want to do it. It's just too hard. And yeah, it happens all the time. And people call me specifically for diversity training who, like, it's not out there. Like, it's not something that's high on my profile. I don't have any certifications around it. I just happen to be a woman of color who also has learning disabilities, but treating it like, just like you said, like, just bringing in more people of a particular background doesn't make it diverse and doesn't make me an expert. That's like saying, like, we bring in all of these people and they all feel exactly the same, and that's just, it's ridiculous.
You're checking the boxes. They're like,
oh, I check so many boxes.
I was gonna say, you're like the Gap commercial of diversity inclusion training. Like they're like, oh, she's perfect. She's just light enough but dark enough. Just a mixture of learning disability but smart. Eloquent yet
absolutely
salty.
Yeah.
I
So
like
check
her.
the
I like
boxes.
her.
I check the boxes, and I fit or can code switch into an environment where that's predominantly another race. Because it hasn't only happened in white organizations. I've worked for Jewish organizations. I've worked for Latino organizations. Like, I've worked in these different settings, and it always happens.
I like her. She's like a Neapolitan of options.
Yeah, it's truly, it's a really strange existence.
You're like the frittata of people. She's the frittata of leadership development. All right, guys, we got probably time for one more question. So if there's any questions out there, let's throw them out there, because Sum and I are going to be wrapping it up here, and we tend to chit chat quite a bit. So yeah, that's so funny. It's like, what should we have her do? I'm not sure. Diversity inclusion. that's kind of bullshit.
What's her next project?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're so amazing at this other stuff that and I've had you do strengths training in my organization, core value development, and that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I just learned what the word diversity inclusion was like 3 weeks ago. So for me, I'm like, I don't know how hard that stuff is, but I'm assuming like the other stuff's super hard, and you're one of the few people I know that is amazing at it. So it's amazing that you come into these organizations to do leadership development. And I think that speaks to these bias everyone has. They want to freaking put everyone in a box. And I look at it, I go, man, we're in America. Like get over it,
Yeah.
Like this is like, I didn't tell you the story. I was on this, I've been a little bored since I've been partially retired. And so I've been on Facebook, which is a toxic place to go if you're bored, because you get, especially if you have a hankering for talking shit to people who oppose your opinions, which I do. So I started getting, this guy posted like, I like to talk shit to Democrats because the minute I, call out their snowflake liberal, weakness, they never have an answer for me. And so I'm like, I do. I'm like, I got some answers for you, and so like his first go-to for me was, what's your background? And I thought I had read the word military background, right? And so I'm like, so he's trying to see if I serve my country. I'm like, I'm not gonna bite so quick, buddy. So I start like, so I just decided to. I said, well, let me ask you your views on our $1 trillion deficit, which is like a total curveball, right? Yeah. And so he goes, what's your background? And I still thought it was military. I said, what's your credit score? And so then he goes, he goes, I'm, first boat pilgrim, like, something,
Mayflower family, whatever.
Mayflower, Jamestown, from a descendant of, this is the best part, descendant of, Thomas Jefferson. Oh God, I wish I had it in front of me right now. Like Thomas Jefferson, Sir Francis Drake, and Brad Pitt.
Oh, that's incredible.
And listen, I totally screwed it up because he started with Brad Pitt.
Oh, it's so good. And so I loved how that makes him more American.
Dude, it was amazing. It was amazing. So then I was like, huh? I was confused because I thought he was talking about military. So I scroll back up the thread, and I was like, oh shit. He had said something like, I'm English. And so he's asking me my actual ethnic background.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm like, I said, I'm American, right? And he goes, no, where's your family from? And I said, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My mom's from Pittsburgh, right? And he's like, I go, but I said, where are you going with this? ? Are you asking me my heritage? Or are you asking me where I'm from? I was born in Anaheim, California. I said, but to answer your question, my father was born and raised in Iran. My mother's an immigrant, a daughter of an immigrant from Italy. Next thing the guy does, dude, starts calling me a fucking terrorist. Starts saying Ahmed, Muhammad. Now, mind you, dude, my fucking cousin's names are Muhammad and Ahmed. But it was funny, right? Because I actually wasn't upset by it, but I was like, wow, this guy's super. Oh, you know what it was? What got the whole thing started was he said everyone calls me a racist because they don't like it when I'm right, and I'm not racist at all because I'm a Trump supporter. And I'm like, dude, you literally went. I said, you are literally the definition of what you think you're not. I said, when you judge people based off of, I said, you're judging me based off my name, dude. If I had a conversation with you on the street, I said, by the way, dipshit, my middle name's fucking John. Like how many Al Qaeda's bombers have the middle name of John?
Right.
Darius Mirshahzadeh. So it's funny, right? When we start to see that people want to label each other, and like what you're talking about, like speaks to that to me, that they want to label. Like Summer comes in here, you're part African American, and you're a trainer. She should do our diversity inclusion training. Yeah. Right.
Well, and there's a piece, just to get into this last little bit of time. I cannot tell you how many times someone has asked me, what are you? And it's across the board to ethnicity. And I used to have a really hard time with it. I used to stutter over my words and I just had a hard time with it. And so I started answering with, well, what is it that you really want to know about me?
Right.
And because what I realized when I got these questions from Filipino people and Latino people and Persian people and white people, they were looking for what we had in common. And because my ethnicity is so ambiguous, they thought I might be from their same background. And so while it is a microaggression and it makes me uncomfortable, what are you particularly does, I started looking at it from this frame of, this person just wants to know how we're alike. And
that's cool.
and that's okay. And then we can have a real conversation, but I definitely point out, what is the question beyond the question?
First of all, I would say, well, I'm half asshole.
only 50%?
Only 50%, and I'm 50% fucking amazing. And when you put them together, you get this motherfucker. But
indeed.
But the second thing I'm going to say is the secret word of the day has got to be microaggression.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, what about micro passive aggression?
That's not micro.
I'm going to microly passively aggressive you. What does that mean? Oh, it means I left the door barely open. Oh shit. Some I think we're wrapping it up here.
Yeah.
No more questions. You guys, your loss. You guys can ask questions though in the feed. We'll be answering them after the fact. Well, dude, where can people find you, my dear?
LinkedIn is the easiest way to find me. I've, to be honest, like Darius has brought me so much work and so many referrals that's how I get most of my work. But if you want to see what I do, see my recommendations, those types of things, and get in touch with me, go to LinkedIn. It's a good place to start.
All right, so we can find you on LinkedIn, or you can hit me up, and I'll send you guys through to her if you for some reason you're not good at looking up Summer Thommen, Thommen. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to plug my book now, just because I want to. You've actually read my book.
I have.
Can you give just so we can all like call it out. Like she's in the she got, I think, in a paragraph in the acknowledgement section. So Summer's got a paragraph because she was very involved in a lot of the content creation over the years, and the book is a big part of the book is work that she and I did together for many years. So what like outside of obviously that, like what were your thoughts? Like what did you like about the book? What are your thoughts on who it can help and how it can help people?
I think the things that I liked the most were what happens after the core values are developed. Like, I have my own way of doing the discovery piece, but bringing in design thinking into the process and doing that pretty thoroughly, and like how is this going to be used in the business, how to make it actionable, and then all of the ways to bring it alive in the organization, to make it fun, to make it part of how people love to talk about the place that they work. And for me, that's a piece of the fun that builds a lot of trust, that helps people take down their barriers when it comes from an authentic place. And I just have a strong belief that when you're being goofy, you can't fake the funk. And so you have to show up, and having the kinds of games and logos and all of that stuff, it brings that in a way that you can't ignore. So I really liked that, and I think it's going to be super helpful for people who've been doing a poor job at at rolling out core values, which is an issue.
Which is most companies too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Listen, keep following us. You can follow us on my Facebook page, my professional Facebook page at therealdariusm.com, or no, at therealdariusm on Facebook. You can also see us on YouTube. Just look up The Greatness Machine and you'll see us on there. And also we're on LinkedIn and Twitter. So check us out, or you could go to therealdarius.com. So therealdarius.com to learn more, but sign up, like our comments, follow us. We got way more content coming. We're definitely going to have Summer back. Sometimes this has been like freaking amazing. And literally, if I closed my eyes, I was like, man, I can't wait till Summer comes on the show. I wonder how amazing it's going to be. And then I imagine how amazing it's going to be. That's what just happened. So like this literally like lived up to my expectations. And as you know, I have high expectations. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful for having you, Sum.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You're amazing. I love you. Guys, I love you too. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time. No, it's not same bat time. I don't know what it is tomorrow, but we have somebody cool tomorrow. I don't even know who it is. Look it up on the page. We're going to be doing some more shows tomorrow, next week, and thereafter. So thanks for joining us on the Greatness Machine. So glad to have you guys. Peace. Thanks, Sum.
Bye.